It's a myth that you have to run around with your head cut off and be an entrepreneur. That's a myth. You don't have to do that.
Well, hey, welcome back to the Amanda Kaufman Show. And I am so excited to introduce you to my friend Natalie Fairchild. So, Natalie is the founder of Pacific Perks, and she's agreed to come and join us on today's episode to talk about being more powerful, in your entrepreneurship, building real work-life balance. And we're going to see where the conversation takes us. But hey, thanks for joining us today. Natalie, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So excited. So, why don't you take 30 seconds and help the listener understand what it is that you do?
Yeah, so my title, even though I'm founder CEO, I like to go by Chief Inspirational Officer because I feel like that's what I love to do is inspire people, get them to their best potential. And I do that whether I'm on a board or a committee or my team or looking for the next franchisee for Pacific Perks. That's what I want is bring people up and let them know that they can do whatever they want. So Pacific Perks is a unique business. We're a mobile event caterer. So we have 10 different services. Now, one of the big one is our espresso bar catering. However, we're not a truck, we're not a kiosk. We load up the equipment, we drive to the event, set it up, and we charge a flat fee. And then whoever's been invited to that event gets to enjoy it for free. So we're all about creating experiences.
That's really, really cool. So I have to ask, like, what inspired that original idea? It is always a courageous thing for an entrepreneur to be like, I'm going to do this thing, but there's going to be this edge to it. There's going to be a big difference and a distinction for it. Like, what inspired this for you?
Well, it's so funny you say the word courageous because entrepreneurs are thought to be very courageous. Absolutely. However, what inspired this was a life change, like something needed to happen in our life. My husband, who I endearingly refer to him as that, has MS, multiple sclerosis. And we were in our 30s, Amanda. People were climbing the ladder, kind of finding their groove on what they wanted to do, and our hands were just slipping down the ladder because MS was changing, and we'd adjust, new normal, go along, and then there'd be another change. So at the time, we had my girls, and I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but I quickly realized I loved being a mom and I was an entrepreneur for sure because I started a design business and I had my hands in a bunch of different things. And at the time, we needed to get Jim out of the corporate world. And so that's how Pacific Perks was born. We decided to move back to the Pacific Northwest where my support system is. And it was all about surviving, really. We need to balance our life. We need to sustain our family financially and have success there. And something's got to change now. So that is why.
That necessity is such a powerful drive for a high achiever and a high performer. And, sometimes necessity comes from within. You identify that thing, that fire, that spark that you need to pursue. And so often the reality is necessity can come from outside and from the unexpected. And I am really further curious,
Yeah.
because entrepreneurship is pretty risky. And you are a very smart patootie, so I know you did the Googling. I know you did here's the statistical chance of us surviving this,
Right.
right? And yet you still chose this pathway. And so I'm curious if you had this similar experience because I did the same thing with
Okay.
the Google.
Yeah.
And I did a risk assessment in my own life, and it actually felt riskier to stay the course of corporate.
Which is so good for you to do because I think that there's this feeling that corporate is so safe, but
Hmm.
it isn't. If you're an entrepreneur, let's say, and COVID happens, or, some businesses didn't make it, but, something big happens, you are not going from here to zero. you
Mhm.
still have business that you can produce and you have control over that to kind of adjust and make things happen. If you're in
Mhm.
the corporate world and things go down, which they do, you're at zero. You're at starting point. And so we
Totally.
kind of forget that.
I completely agree with you, and I'm so excited you're saying it because I think the perception of corporate safety
Corporate
is
safety.
not something we've talked about a lot on the show, but like it is a huge myth that you are safer in a job necessarily. Especially, and I'm curious if this was true for you, because a lot of entrepreneurs, especially the good ones, the ones that are able to entrepreneur even if things change. So you're right, a lot of businesses went down in flames, due to the pandemic. And also, there were people who exited entrepreneurship because of that and then went and rejoined, traditional workforce. But there were also a lot of entrepreneurs that, yes, the business died, but they then turned around and they created something new. They moved into a different space. They pivoted because the human being that was driving the business, like they are the entrepreneur. And where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, it's just that fire we have inside of us, that
Hmm.
knowing that I'd love to get a great word for it, but that time when I started speaking, I was like, okay, I'm going to start speaking. I'm scared to death, but I know I need to do this and I'm going to go do it. And just that overriding faith in business over fear, or just pushing yourself, it's just something that's in me.
Totally. I think the thing about a traditional job pathway is you can specialize into a particular area. And like I have no doubt that your events are spectacular. I haven't attended one just yet because I live in a slightly different part of the country. But with entrepreneurship, it's not good enough to be good. Like you've got to have that good, but then to your point, you've also got to advertise. You've also got to sell. You've also got to do financial management. You've got to have leadership. You've got to have people skills, right? Like there's all these skills that I feel like in traditional workforces, you can sort of like squeak by and have a minimal investment in success in that area. And that was for sure my truth. And I'm curious, like, what made the biggest difference to still maintaining that balance piece? Because there are a lot of hot mess express entrepreneurs who they're like, balance? What the hell is that? Like, a lot of entrepreneurs would argue balance doesn't even exist. So
I remember
you obviously had a very different context.
Yeah, well, I think the blessing in having a debilitating illness in our family was that, and I compared myself, believe me, was that we weren't two able-bodied people running this business. So we knew from the get-go, we needed to pull people in to help us, right? And so that created a space where we could have balance and we could avoid burnout. And I'm all about pulling in people that have the skill sets that are not my strengths. No ego
Mm,
about that. Like, if you ask my team, we'll all sit here and laugh and tell you what I'm really good at and what I'm not good at. And P&Ls and numbers, and I mean, I can read a P&L, we go over P&Ls, but I have a person in place that is on top of it. And that's just not where I excel. But the things that you do really need to excel at, and I feel like has been the culprit of my success, not only the delegating and pulling people in for resources, but also the basics of business. I do a talk called Go the Extra Mile, It's Not Very Far. And I put this talk together 8 years ago, and I recently it's resurfaced and I, changed it up a little bit, but it is it's just so important still today. And people are just like, yes, yes. So it's doing what you say you're going to do. You can advertise, but if you don't do what you say you're going to do, that client's not going to be happy and they're going to talk about it and they're probably not coming back. Communication. Communication is, obviously, we know communication is so important, but I always like to say no update is an update.
that's a really, really good observation and point. When you think about this delegation piece because so many business owners like never ever figure it out, or it becomes this big struggle bus. The other way that I see a lot of entrepreneurs sort of slam into a wall inadvertently is they over delegate. Like they refuse to let other people in, but then once they do allow other people in, there's a management problem. Like they're not necessarily, they're either, I work a lot in marketing and digital marketing. And there are so many marketers, they're super happy to charge you for thousands of dollars to not provide a lead or not provide any tracking or not provide the strategy.
Right.
And like, I don't know an entrepreneur that hasn't been burned by that one.
Right.
So, what would you say is super important to keep core, even as you leverage the power of people? How do you think about that?
Core meaning the skill set or the task that I
Like, I
love.
guess what I'm saying is like the things that you keep versus the things you delegate. How do you think about that
Yeah.
to
Well, I know.
make sure you don't find yourself paying for people who aren't producing results, getting the ROI, being able to get the results that you're really, really looking for?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
curious about your perspective on that.
So in my team, I think creating a culture where people are seen and heard and they have autonomy and they have the ability to grow and take on different things that they're interested in really helps that. And then I delegate the things that, I used to do everything. I was first out on the events, front facing. And then I know what I'm really good at and what I'm not good at. So I delegate out what I'm not good at, but I know what I need, either by just knowing as a business owner in my experience or through business coaches and learning, extra learning. Hey, yes, this is something we need to be doing in our business. And then with delegation, you have to delegate, and then you have to circle back around and manage the delegation. When
Hmm.
I was a young leader, I just thought, well, I get stuff done. If I say I'm going to do it, I do it. However, there's the human error, right? There's always something that we forget. I wrote something on my thing this morning, like, don't forget that. So there's always that. But we all need to be accountable. And I just thought that everyone just gets stuff done. They work like I do. Well, that's not always the case. And we all have different working styles. So
And different working desires too, because like even if you're trying to maintain that life balance, maybe you've got the capacity considerations. I've built my business while raising lots of kids, and my dear husband has been the stay-at-home dad on point, but I don't want him to feel alienated. I don't want to just like
right.
cordon myself off in my office the end, like there's balance is for sure a priority. The thing that I didn't totally appreciate until I actually got into the leadership piece is not everybody wants this. A lot of people want to do a good job, they want to grow, they're in a phase of growth. And even in my own journey, the early part of my career was for sure a job, because that's where I got my social skills, my analytical skills, my strategic skills, my project planning skills, like skill. And different people are at like different phases and have different priorities, but that doesn't mean that they can't add value to your business in a significant way.
100%.
But I love your call out here of just, it's tempting because you've done so much personal growth and development, so much character development to be able to carry the risk of running a business. It's easy to assume that other people have the same lens, and like you're kind of weird. Lovingly, you're weird, right?
Little
Yeah.
cray cray. Yeah.
Yeah, a little cray cray.
And you need those people that are like, hey, I want to check in and I want to check out. There is a place for them, which is perfect. And then, other people like us that are constantly striving for the next thing, those are great too.
Yeah, you need both.
You need both. And that's okay. And even with whether you're in a job or you're an entrepreneur, sometimes people just need to go to a job and just do their little, specified thing. And that's what they need. And that's who they are as a person or that time in their life. And that's totally fine. And then there's another group of us that are like, what if? Or how could I? Or I could see this happening. Or gosh, it'd be great if. If you have those types of things running through your mind, if you go
Hmm.
around driving in town and look at businesses and go, gosh, if they could just tweak that, or I can't read their font really well on their sign. I wonder if I should go tell them that. You might
Totally.
be an entrepreneur.
You might be an entrepreneur if you're always fixing stuff, right? That's not really yours to fix.
Totally.
You might be an entrepreneur. I love that. Yeah, no, that's super true. So if this episode was only 30 seconds long and you wanted to leave somebody with just like here's the one thing that I want you to know when it comes to, pursuing this business, pursuing the dream, keeping sanity along the way, even if you are a little bit of a tornado entrepreneur, like what would be the one thing you would want to leave them with?
That it's a myth that you have to run around with your head cut off and be an entrepreneur. That's a myth. You don't have to do that. You
Mm,
can. That's the one thing that you do have is you have control of your schedule to a certain extent, and it can be done. And that is the beauty of being an entrepreneur. And if you are an entrepreneur, you take it, grab hold of it, and take that and leverage that in your life to be living your best life. So I like to say, like, know what your recipe is. Like, my recipe has never been 40 plus hours a week, it just hasn't been. And then figure out that recipe and then live your recipe and figure out how to live your recipe with your life and with your job.
mhm.
And that will get you the best version of yourself for you, for other people, and create some more flow in your life.
So good. I mean, when I think about the most creative moments in my journey and a lot of my clients' journey, it was universally facing some kind of constraint. Like it was a constraint on the cash flow or a constraint on the capacity or a constraint on your visibility or, like I think sometimes it's only natural to fear the constraint of, I can only work so many hours or I have little people or big people depending on me, and to kind of let the responsibility freak you out a little bit. And so that actually was the big inspiration behind my free group, Clients Over Chaos, is I kept meeting all these coaches who are amazing, brilliant, high IQ, high impact, high desire to help people, and just frozen in chaos. And it is falling victim to exactly what you just said, which is just not honoring the recipe, not honoring that it is, not allowing for the possibility of the truth that you can operate within constrained hours, you can operate within the level that you're in and build leverage to the future. Um
I'm curious, asking you a question.
yeah, please. Oh my God, let's go.
Yeah, and then there's this other thing that I'm very much trying to practice because I can be like, when I'm working, I can be like, go, 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 very focused.
Mhm.
And when I can just keep my anxiety level down by
Mhm.
all the things that help that, right? And take my hands off the steering wheel, like the white knuckling. Like we're still
Mhm.
steering, but we're not knuckling. When I just go, you know what? You're right where you should be, and you are doing the right things because we're high achievers. So we know we are. Then I feel like things just kind of flow in. But when I'm like, nothing flows in,
Totally.
everything,
Well, and like when you think about the fight, flight, and freeze, what happens? Our field of vision goes like so narrow. And if you've ever felt really highly conflicted between this black and white decision, one of the most powerful things about coaching is to have a witness to that conflict and have somebody, who's not got the stakes. The stakes in the process in your relationship, they don't have the same, stakes of I don't want to disappoint people I love. I don't want to risk payroll. I don't want to do all this. To be able to just ask this question of like, is it more of a gradient? Like, is this more of a grayscale thing? Is there actually something way out here that you're not considering because you're freaked, right? And you're like you're narrowed in.
yeah,
Yeah,
I like,
completely. I agree. I think high achievers sometimes can get over specified on what success is and also timing and also how it has to happen.
yes,
And that's false
timing.
control.
I can feel that one for sure when you said that, for sure.
Yeah.
Like you said, like what success is.
Yeah.
My recipe is I'm a little ops heavy. But you know what? That just gives me so much space and time to do the visionary stuff and a lot less headaches. And that is success to me.
I love it. So two things that came up. I was like, first of all, there's another episode of the show that just recently got released, that is with my dear friend Chad Peavy, and he has specialized in talking about gifted and talented adults. And we were talking about how gifted and talented adults, hint, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're not satisfied by the status quo and you're a little neurospicy and you're just like, I've got to create this vision, there's a possibility you might be actually a gifted adult. And he was saying that gifted adults, like just because they're intelligent or just because they have a high index of capability in certain areas doesn't mean that they don't struggle emotionally and struggle with like the perfectionism sabotaging their success. So I love that for you, that you identified for yourself. You were like, hey, give me lots of capacity. Give me lots of capacity to execute. Let me have team members that are running the process for me so that I have the space to use my genius and I have the space to be able to lead them.
My
That's
life,
beautiful.
and to live my life for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is success for me.
1000%.
And I love that you brought that up because everyone has a different definition of success.
Totally,
And I
totally.
am
And the
all
second
about,
thing that
yeah,
you made me think of
yeah,
was
oh yeah,
Brendan Burchard has his app Growth Day. He does these daily fires. So sorry, listener, you might not be able to listen to this particular one, but you can go check out Growth Day. He'll drop some more gold. But the thing he said is when you're defining success, traditionally we define it by the goal, like goal orientation. And he added four more dimensions to that, right? And I feel like you've done that so well, Natalie, is like you have relational goals. You have goals about like feeling goals, like how do you want to experience the
mhm,
week? You've got connection goals, you've got, these different ways to succeed that are beyond and in addition to and in support of your outcome goals.
right, exactly. And I definitely want to put it out there that, do I never struggle with my flexibility and am I doing enough? Absolutely not. I mean, I do. I do for
Hmm.
sure. I remember, 10, 12 years ago, because of Jim's health, I was at the office and I wanted to go home and be a mom to my grade school kids. And a friend said, "Hey, what happens from 3:30 on that you can't just leave?" And I was like, "I don't know." And so I tried it. And for 6 months, it took a while to feel okay about it. But
Yeah.
now from the top down, no one's really at the office past 3:30, unless
Yeah.
there's something big going on. It's about getting the work done. It's not about chaining yourself to your desk from a certain time frame.
Love it. Natalie, how can people follow you?
Yeah, the best way to follow me is on LinkedIn, Natalie Fairchild. And you'll see my photo there and with a coffee cup. Yeah, I'd love it. And if you want to DM me, I do have a Sweet Perks calendar I can send you. It's a fun little marketing tool. Or if you're at a company and you want to appreciate employees or putting together events, this is a great tool. It has all the standard holidays, but lots of wacky, fun ones like May the 4th be with you, or give you some
We
ideas
celebrate
and
that
it's
one.
free. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. Well, and dear listener, if you check out the show notes, you will find Natalie's website and all of her details to be able to follow her further. Natalie, thank you so much for joining us for this episode.
Thank you, Amanda. It was really fun.
Yeah, my pleasure. And listener, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss another show. And if you got the 30 seconds to leave us a review, we are so grateful for you taking time to leave an honest review. And I really feel Natalie brought us a 5 out of 5 personally, but you let us know what you think.
Yeah.
And of course, if you've got a friend who's maybe been struggling with the balance game or feeling like they have to be busy to be productive and they're looking for another way, just grab the link to this episode and send it to them. Send it to 3 of your friends and let them hear some alternative perspectives. All right. Well, thank you everybody for being here and for joining us. And until the next episode, do what matters.